Okay, hello everybody. My name is Olga Libova, and I have been helping women have babies for the last 25 years. I have worked as a childbirth educator, as a doula. I'm trained as a registered nurse. I got certified as a certified nurse-midwife in 2000 and have been delivering babies since then, as well as still teaching childbirth preparation classes mostly to help my patients and other people go through labor. My goal for doing this recording is to answer common questions that people might have when they are preparing for labor. I'm joined by C and A. C is due in a couple of weeks, and A is due in a couple of months, and they might be typing some questions for us, and we will be answering them. So the first thing I want to talk about is the most common question: when do I go to the hospital? And in order to answer that question, let's talk about different ways that labor can start. For most people, labor starts with contractions. And when labor first started, when you start having contractions, we cannot really tell 100% if this is real labor or this is a training session, because a lot of times the body will start contracting. Maybe you will have contractions every 15 to 30 minutes for a couple of hours, and then everything will stop. In general, the rule is that if contractions getting stronger, no matter what you do, it's most likely to be active, to be real labor. If when you change positions or you go for a walk, contractions slow down, most likely this is a training session, and it will probably not be progressing. But to tell you the truth, the only way to know for sure what it is when we look back and we say, okay, what happened on Tuesday was just a training session, and then on Wednesday I thought it was real labor, but it was also a training session, but then the next day it really kicked in and never stopped. Okay, so the most important thing when you first start labor is to ignore your contractions. Do not get too excited. Do not call all your friends and family, because they will drive you crazy. Just try to make sure that everything is packed. Do something to distract yourself. Bake some cookies for the nurses. Go for a walk. Play some video games. So whatever you can do, do not get too excited. If you actually can take a nap, that would be absolutely fabulous, because you never know how long your labor will be. And even if you can just snooze a little bit in between contractions, that will really help you to deal with labor. Okay, so don't get too excited. Don't start breathing right away. For most women, labor starts slowly, and you will have time to do your breathing later. Right now, just try to ignore contractions. Once in a while, people say, well, my labor didn't start like that. I started having contractions every 5 minutes from the very beginning, and they were very intense. And that's also okay. There is nothing wrong about it. It's less common. Then you definitely don't have time for all this preparation, and you will start to focus on your breathing and try to do the slow, deep breathing as much as possible. And we'll talk about breathing a little bit later, but it is just a simple rhythmic activity that helps you to focus on something simple and break down those 45 to 60 seconds into smaller intervals. Okay? So you ignore, you try to get some sleep, you go for a walk. At some point, contractions are becoming really regular and you're thinking, oh yeah, it looks like this is a real thing and I do need to start doing something because I cannot just ignore that. So our basic way of dealing with contractions is to do slow deep breathing in and out, no matter whether you're breathing through your mouth or through your nose. If you do some yoga, some meditation, that's exactly the same type of breathing that they teach you. And you start the contraction with a big cleansing breath, like, and then you just keep breathing at whatever is comfortable pace for you. If you can, a lot of people find that breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth is most comfortable for them. And you just focus on this breathing in and out, and that distracts you from whatever else is going on. And as long as you can do that, just keep doing it. Contraction is over. Big breaths, get rid of all the tension in your body. Okay? And I cannot tell you that you will stay home for a couple of hours, 8 hours, or longer than that, because we want you to stay home all through the early labor. Now let's talk a little bit about what happens during early labor, what is early labor. So before you start labor, for most first-time mom, their cervix is still pretty long. It's about 3 centimeters long, and it's closed. There is a pinpoint opening, and the texture of the cervix is kind of similar to the texture of your nose. Okay, so it's kind of pretty firm. A lot of times the cervix is also back there in the very back of your vagina. So sometimes if your healthcare provider is saying, okay, let's check your cervix, we put fingers in, we cannot even reach the cervix. At the end of the pregnancy, for some women, the body starts preparation by moving the cervix to the front, getting it thinner, getting it a little bit open, getting it softer, so that when contractions start, there is actually less homework, less work that needs to be done because there was already some homework done. Okay, so these early contractions of labor, they do more of this work. They bring the cervix to the front, they make the cervix thinner, we call it effacement, and help to dilate a little bit more. So in order for you to start pushing the baby out, we need to get the cervix fully open. So if you think about pulling a turtleneck over your head, so that neck of the turtleneck is your cervix, right? So in the beginning, even though in a real turtleneck you have some opening, in cervix you don't have an opening, it's kind of closed like this. And the uterus is doing this. So it's just trying to pull the cervix down, and slowly the turtleneck is getting lower and like closer to the baby's head and thinner, and start stretching over the head, right? And at some point it gets to here. And we call this completely dilated. And what it means is that when I put my fingers inside the vagina, the only thing I feel is the top of the head. I do not feel any cervix around the head. And we call that completely dilated or 10 centimeters. Okay, so it doesn't really necessarily mean that it's 10, it might be 9, it might be 11, depending upon how big the baby's head is. But we want to get to the point when there is no cervix felt around the baby's head, and that's when we can start pushing. Okay, but right now we're talking about early labor, and early labor is when that cervix opens from being pretty closed to about 4-5 centimeters. Now, traditionally, we always thought that early labor is until the cervix opens to 3 centimeters. Then there was a lot of studies that, a couple of studies, they said, well, we actually should not expect women to go in active labor when contractions are really well established and you expect the cervix to dilate at about 2 centimeters an hour until they're closer to 6 centimeters. So you will see if you go online and you try to read about early labor, it is quite confusing about like what is the criteria, when do I say that I am in early labor versus I am in active labor. And to tell you the truth, who cares? Basically, we stay home until your contractions come every 5 minutes and they last at least 1 minute, and they have been like this for at least 1 hour, so that's called 5-1-1. Every 5 minutes, at least 1 minute long, at least for 1 hour. And during the contraction, you really have to pay attention. You cannot just continue baking cookies. You have to stop what you are doing and focus on breathing, any repetitive movements, singing. Different people cope differently, but you cannot just ignore your contractions. Okay, so that's a time when you will be saying, well, I think I'm in really good active labor. I want to come to the hospital. When people use doulas, doulas are non-medical trained labor assistants or labor coaches. They often help women to stay home even longer. And that's okay because they kind of know, they have experience, they cannot check your cervix, but they go by other signs that gives them an idea, okay, where in labor we are. So having a doula might help people who want to go to the hospital later and avoid maybe spending a long time in the hospital to stay home longer. Another situation when you need to go to the hospital is if your water breaks. Now, the trick is that you don't always know if your water broke, because sometimes it's not obvious. Your underwear is a little wet. You are not quite sure, is it amniotic fluid, or is it urine, or is it just a lot of mucus? The general rule is if you change your underwear, you lie down for 20 minutes, and then you get up and walk around. If your underwear is dry, most likely that was not amniotic fluid. If your underwear is wet, then most likely it is amniotic fluid. It is not helpful to cough because your underwear will be wet no matter whether it's urine or amniotic fluid. But definitely when you're lying down, if it is amniotic fluid, it collects in the vagina and then you get up and gravity makes it come out. So if that happens, then you kind of know, yes, that's my amniotic fluid. Most of the time, amniotic fluid is transparent, and it can have a little bit of bloody discharge in it. That's completely fine. In general, After you're 37 weeks pregnant, bloody discharge is great. It means that cervix is getting thinner and opening and getting ready. Okay, so you wipe, it is pink, it is red, it is orange, it is brown, that's completely fine. Now, if you start bleeding like it's the first day of your period, that's not normal. That's something that we need to look at as soon as possible, so please get yourself to the hospital. But if you're experiencing contractions, or you are not even experiencing contraction and there is some bloody mucousy discharge, that's excellent. Okay, sometimes when the water breaks, it has this greenish brownish color, and that's called meconium. Meconium is first poop of the baby, and it mostly happens when you're over your due date, because the baby is or close to your due date, because the baby's digestive system is now working. I'm ready to be a big boy. I can poop now. But it also might happen when the baby is experiencing a decreased amount of oxygen. And so in general, if women have some meconium in their amniotic fluid, we just want to be a little bit more careful. We want to do continuous monitoring. We don't want to do intermittent monitoring, which we can do when you have no risk factors and we're not doing any interventions. So definitely it will be very important to tell the hospital if when your water broke, the fluid was greenish, had greenish color. It is very unusual, but if the fluid has a lot of odor, that's also really important to tell the nurse who will be admitting you. So we go to the hospital when you are experiencing active contractions, again, 511, some people say 411. The frequency of contractions is from the beginning to the beginning. So from beginning of one contraction to the beginning of the other is 4 to 5 minutes. Each contraction from the time you're saying, okay, here it comes. Okay. So it's about 1 minute, and you have been working like this for about an hour. Okay, so you come if you are having regular contractions like this. You come if your water broke, or you believe, if you are not 100% sure, you always can come and get checked. The other reason to come, definitely, if you have any concerns about your health or your child's health. So every day we expect the baby to be moving. That's the most important reassurance that the baby is getting enough oxygen. So most people kind of have this predictable pattern. A lot of times there is a lot of movement when you lie down or after you eat dinner. So we expect that even in early labor, the pattern of the behavior will be quite similar. Okay, and so if you feel that this is a very unusual day, I barely feel any movement, do things that typically make the baby move. Drink something sweet, poke your belly, lie on one side, lie on the other side, talk to the baby. If you do not get any movement, our normal movement, please come to the hospital and get checked. Again, the baby should continue his or her normal behavior at the end, in the last weeks of pregnancy and during labor. So that's the only way we can kind of assess how the baby is doing, is by the movements. Now, the reasons for the mom to be concerned about her health is if she is getting a fever, if she is getting really weird sensations like unusual headache, unusual, not just nausea. A lot of people can be nauseous, especially in active labor, but if it feels to you like you ate something like really big fatty meal and you're just like, blah, I'm really not feeling well. So this can be a sign of a rare complication called preeclampsia, which is more common at the end of the pregnancy. So again, headache, just general feeling of not being well, weird nausea, changes in your vision like tunnel vision. So these are all the reasons to come to the hospital for the mom's health. In general, as at least in the Bay Area, most hospitals and doctors' offices do not want you to call before you come in, because nobody can really assess you over the phone. We cannot tell what's going on without seeing you and listening to the baby's heartbeat and taking your temperature and all these other things. So they will never tell you over the phone, you don't have to come. Once in a while, the hospital will say, we would like you to call labor and delivery and just let us know that you are coming. So if your hospital or your doctor ask you to do so, please do, but otherwise just come in and they will triage you when you come in. Okay, so I think I finished my spiel on when to go to the hospital. So if you guys have any questions, can you please type them? And if not, we'll just pause this recording and see what else we want to talk about. Okay. So far, I don't see anybody typing, so I will pause recording. So the next question I was asked was to talk more about dealing with pain of labor. And first, I want to address the very concept of pain in labor. There are certain childbirth preparation methods like hypnobirthing and hypnobaby that rely on the idea that you can reteach your body to interpret the signals, the sensations you experience in labor, not as pain, but as rushes or energy surges. And in my career, I had a couple of people who did a lot of preparation, a lot of meditation, a lot of rewiring their brain to not interpret this sensation as pain, and were successful in it. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying that for most people, labor is painful. And so what I'm going to do is talk about how to successfully deal with pain of labor. Okay? Having said that, if you're able to do a lot of self-hypnosis, self-preparation, and change your perception and feel, interpret contractions as energy surges, that's absolutely amazing. And again, I think it's pretty rare, but I've seen it working a couple of times. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is give you a framework, and because I like puns and I like cute things, we will use the word pain as an acronym, and we'll start with the bottom. So we have PAIN, and we'll start with the letter N. So for us, letter N will stand for normal. What does that mean? Well, our brain is conditioned. It's a self-defense mechanism that we are conditioned to interpret pain as a sign of physical damage, disease, or some problem. You step on a glass, you break your arm, you burn your finger, you know that something is wrong, you know that there is damage because you feel pain. And so it is very normal that your brain is conditioned to think that any pain means that there is a problem. Well, practicing training for Ironman or any other big physical challenge and labor are two situations um, when having pain actually means that your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So we need to change our perception of pain from pain means there is a problem to pain is normal. We want to accept pain. We want to be proud of pain. And it's not only the person who is experiencing pain needs to change her attitude, but the support team, people around her should cheer and say, yes, great, you're in pain. That's excellent. That's what we have been waiting for. It would be nice if we had a little different word. We can call it labor pain. But basically what you want to avoid is people around you feeling sorry for you or pitying you, right? Because that's not what you do when you are training for a physical challenge. You don't want your personal trainer to say, oh, you poor thing, I just feel so bad for you. No, you want your personal trainer to say, hey, that was a really strong contraction and you nailed it. You are doing amazing. You're working really hard. It is very challenging, but you're a pro. You are doing it so well. Okay, so do not be freaked out by pain. And very importantly, do not fight it. Just accept it as a part of your experience. Accept it like you accept a wave when you're swimming in the ocean and you let the wave carry you. Okay, so surrendering is very important. I will be using this word again and again. Not fighting, not resisting, but accepting the normalcy, accepting that's okay, my body is doing exactly the right thing. I will just go with the flow and ride that wave of pain, sensation, energy. Yes, it is painful energy, but it is a productive energy. Okay. So N is for normal. The next letter, if we go from the bottom, is I. And I for us will stand for intermittent. So intermittent means that there are breaks in between. And for engineers here, if you're contracting every 4 to 5 minutes, you are in pain 20 to 25% of the time, which means that you are not in pain 75 to 80% of the time. And this 75 to 80% is what you need to focus on. Okay? So you need to really enjoy and really take advantage of the breaks in between contractions. what happens a lot is that during the break, the woman either thinking about, oh my God, that was such a hard contraction. Oh my God, I'm just so scared because there will be another one coming like that. Don't think about it. Right now, you need to be in the moment. That contraction is gone, done. It never comes back. I was able to deal with that, and I am I did a really great job, and I will be, I will take the next contraction when it comes, but I don't want you um, I'm sorry, I just need to put the power in my computer before it kills itself. Here we go. So do not stress about the next contraction, okay? So again, during the break, you want your support team, your partner will say, okay, relax your face, relax your body, enjoy not being in pain. You feel great right now. This is the best sensation when you know what pain feels like, but you do not feel pain right now, okay? A lot of times women will say, well, I don't know how much longer I can deal with that. Well, if you're at home, it might be a good time to come to the hospital. If you're in the hospital and you know that in your hospital, like in most hospitals in Bay Area, we do have anesthesiologists that will be available to us within 30-40 minutes, typically from the time when we say, oh, I do want to have an epidural. So you don't have to really plan much in advance. And the most sad story I hear is people who say, I was so scared that it will get worse that I just decided to get an epidural, but now when I look back, I realize that it was too early, but I did it because I was scared. Well, in general, fear is not your friend. Don't make decisions out of fear. Do not think about how many more contractions. Nobody can predict that, okay? I have been surprised again and again when I think, oh my God, we have a long labor in front of us, and all of a sudden my patient is complete. And other situations when I think, oh my gosh, it's such a great labor, we will be pushing in an hour, and it takes us much longer than an hour. So the focusing on breaks, not thinking about how many more contractions are coming. Again, for engineers, n-1, you're just done with this one, so it's n-1 left, and it will keep, the number of contractions you already worked with will increase, and the number of contractions that are left for you to work with will decrease. Okay, and so you just focus on this moment when you have a break, and when you have a contraction, you focus on the break that is coming. Because again, it's just like holding a plank. Most of us can hold a plank for a minute, right? And then we get a break. Okay, so that's intermittent. The letter A will stand for active. And if you think about the way women were giving birth in the United States 70 years ago, or in other countries of the world even more recently, a big room full of screaming women who are lying in beds, not allowed to get up and move around, not having anybody with them, not having any tools for labor support. Yes, it makes sense that these women will have PTSD. If you also think about other people who are experiencing pain, these people tend to also be sick. whether it's cancer pain, it's rheumatoid arthritis pain, it's a broken leg pain. Not only they're in pain, but there's also something wrong with their body, right? When you're in labor, there is nothing wrong with your body, and you don't have to stay in bed. You can be active. So some people find it helpful to not use hospital gown, but labor in their own clothes. There is a lot of cute outfits that I've seen on my patients. But the general principle I recommend, if you want to do your own labor outfit, I would do a skirt and a tube top, so that we can get to your belly to listen to the baby, we can get to your vagina without you having to remove your pants. And with the IV, we actually can pull your top down and not up through the IV. If you started in a t-shirt, we still can work around things. But like, again, if you want a cute outfit for labor, that's what I would look for. Okay, so not thinking of yourself as a patient, but thinking of yourself as an active person is very important. Not lying in bed unless you are really tired and want to rest. Okay, when we get into hospital bed, we think of ourselves, oh, I'm sick, I'm a patient. Don't. Most hospitals in Bay Area, as far as I know, have their big bowls. We call them birthing bowls. We don't birth babies on them, but we labor on them. So the bowls are really good. We use the beds. Our Steiker beds can move up and down. We can put the head of the bed up. We can put the feet down. You can be sitting. You can be kneeling. We can be squatting. We can put a squat bar so that you can squat during the contraction. We actually can use the little bar at the end of the bed, so you can squat on the floor holding to that bar. We also can use the counter. We put a pillow on the counter, and a lot of people like just kind of leaning over the counter, especially if you have more pain in the back and you want your partner to massage your back or put pressure on your back. So these are all good positions. You can bring your yoga mat. We can put like a blanket over it, and you can be in any position on the floor during labor, as long as we can monitor the baby. Now, I just need to make sure once you get an epidural, you have to be in bed. Sometimes people get confused when I say that you can be in any position on the floor. I'm talking about before you get epidural. If you don't get an epidural, a lot of people like using the mat and the ball and just do the hands and knees resting the top of the body, the shoulders on the ball. So important, do not try to support yourself, rest. Okay, so you should be able to completely relax and let the ball support the weight of your body. Okay, so being active, changing positions, getting support from your partner or whoever is your support team. And that includes massage, and some people bring their different massage tools, like whatever the things, like whatever is your favorite toy. And using hot and cold, different hospitals have different protocols of whether you can use something that you can that you can bring from home, like a rice pack, or they are concerned that if you microwave a rice pack, it can get too hot, so they want you to use their warm pack. So I know that in El Camino we prefer to use a warm pack. We also, you can bring any music you want, you can bring your, and a lot of people are dancing. A lot of people actually are dancing through early labor. And some people are singing because that helps you to do the deep breathing. And again, you focus on something. Again, I keep thinking about when I'm trying to hold the plank, sometimes, even though it's difficult to talk, by talking through it, just makes it easier to not be counting seconds until it is over, right? So that was active, right? So staying active, getting support from your support team. And finally, letter P for us stands for purposeful. And this is the most purposeful hard work that you will ever do in your life. You know how, like, when you are doing the Ironman, right? Or you're climbing Mount Everest, what you will get at the end is a trophy, right? Or like, yes, I did that. You get a baby in the end. And that's really motivating for most people. And okay. Okay, hi, this is Olga. I am back. I think we lost connection for a little bit, so I think I will go back to the purpose. I think that's where we stopped. So this is the most purposeful, this is, just a sec, let me see how I do that, yes. So this is the most purposeful hard work you will ever do in your life, okay? And okay, so I think it has to do with my internet, but I'll try one more time. So focusing on the fact that you're actually getting a baby out of that. And as unbelievable as it might sound, a lot of times when you're working really hard, and especially if it's in the middle of the night, you lose perspective. It feels like this will never stop. You will spend the rest of your life dealing with these contractions. You get a lot of very irrational feelings. And again, that's when your cheerleaders need to help you and say, you know what, you're working so hard, every contraction gets you closer and closer to the birth of your baby. And reminding, that's one unstable connection I have here. Okay, so reminding the mom that every contraction bringing the birth of your baby closer and closer, and how much fun it will be, and just kind of bringing like all the dreams and all the funny things that you discussed about the baby and who the baby will look like, and will the baby have red hair, like whatever it is that really brings a purpose to this hard work. Because it is truly much easier to do hard work when there is a purpose to it than when you forget why you are doing that. Okay, so that is your PAIN, pain, the way to approach hard work of labor.